by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
You have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Who is driving the gondola? And we're back. How you doing, George?
Great, Peter. How about yourself?
I see that you must be at David Wemhoff's house, because David Wemhoff has the exact same furniture and layout in his living room that you do there.
Yeah, we called, we consulted, we talked about it. So yeah, all good here with our virtual background.
So how you doing? Are you in Chicago? Or you're
I actually am off the grid. I'm surprised I'm even got internet, but I've gone so deep into. We're thinking about creating our own Indian nation of 100 feathers. We're going to call it, but we're not sure yet. We have.
Well, that sounds like a burbclave to me. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, we're just, we want to make sure the Elizabeth Warrens don't get in with 256 the amount of Indian blood that I have. We're going to make it right at my level and then up. So
when I first signed up for the dreaded 23andMe, which I'm ashamed to say that I actually went and did, and I gave them my real name. It wasn't until later that I realized I didn't have to give them my real name. That when it first came back, it told me that I had less than 1% of Native American. And then, of course, later on, I found out that was a scam, that there was a certain amount of DNA that they just don't know what it is. And they were defaulting to telling everyone that they were part Native American, at least all Americans, that they were part Native American. And that just seemed to be like some kind of way of, mind controlling people.
It could be, but we won't have any of that kind of mind control in our enclave, that's for sure. So today we got a good slate of topics. We do. I can set it up if you want. Sure.
Yeah, George and I were talking earlier because George has been covering the Crooks thing, and I have this lingering question in my head, and the question is. George seems to care more about who shot at Donald Trump than Donald Trump cares about who shot at Donald Trump, and I've been trying to reconcile that with a bunch of other information that I've been collecting. The last 3 Substacks that I put out on Substack, 3 or maybe it's 4. Either someone sent me or the algorithm pushed towards me something that the LaRouche organization did in the 90s called Palmerston Zoo. And it was a big, long, elaborate presentation that they made for people who were members of the Schiller Institute. That's almost 4 hours long. And it has to be the most concise history of the last 300 years of revisionist history that you've never heard. And so what I've been doing is I've been going through it one lecture at a time, running it through my GPT process in order to kind of summarize it for people so that they can deal with the kind of substandard quality video, because the problem with it is that whatever video camera they had at the time, it wasn't good enough. The lighting wasn't good enough. The audio wasn't really very good. And you can kind of barely understand what's going on. But fortunately, going through the Internet Archive and kind of digging around, I found all of the scripts for all of the lectures that were made. And it really is a gem. It's like a hidden gem on the Internet. And but I've been thinking about how powerful it is and what a wonderful amount of information that was being presented publicly in the 1990s, similar to the story of Gary Allen and doing the None Dare Call It conspiracy. That book sold 4.5 million copies and then wound up having exactly no impact on the trajectory of the world and the people who are controlling it. And I've also tried to reconcile the fact that he seems to be very tightly aligned, but Webster Tarpley, who was the kind of the overseer, I think, of that project, along with Lyndon LaRouche, it could be safely qualified as someone having quote-unquote Trump derangement syndrome. That is, if you go and you look at his tweets and you look at his current frame of mind, he seems to be dead set against Donald Trump. And that reminded me a little bit of Daniel Hopsicker and Doug Valentine, who are two people whose work we reference all the time on this show as being in the know and really understanding what's going on. And yet there was always that kind of conflict that those guys didn't really, they never really got on board the Trump train, and they never really saw Donald Trump as any kind of a solution. And then I reconcile some...
George is saying that the audio is buffering?
George is saying that the audio is suffering.
No, I'm not saying that, but I think a troll might be.
Okay.
I think the audio is great.
Okay.
No, I watch that troll.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it? Are they on X?
Twitter.
On Twitter? Okay. Well, if we can't control them, we're going to probably have to just drop Twitter. So, if you lose us on Twitter, we're available on Rumble and YouTube and LinkedIn. Yeah. So
imposters are always your first suspects for trolling, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting I got a couple of trolls on Substack already. There are people who don't like it when you don't pick one particular ethnic group as the progenitors of all evil. Like if you if you pick the wrong one. Anyway, the point is that I was looking at Tarpley, and I was looking at Valentine, and I was looking at Hopsicker, and I was asking myself the question: what do they know that we don't know? What do they know that I don't know? Because obviously, I'm going back to the Webster Tarpley well, in order to pull out all of these latest Substacks, and it does make me again continually come back to the Butler, Pennsylvania venue, and ask the question: well, if Trump doesn't seem to be engaged in trying to find out what really happened there. I mean, there's a lot of reasons I could argue why he wouldn't do that. He's in the middle of a political campaign. But then you look at his interviews with Mark Levin. There was a clip that went out where, again, he's kind of towing the line of the Middle Eastern country that is really just a puppet of the British Empire as far as I'm concerned. And I have all kinds of questions. And so that brings us to the point where Gary Allen published this book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, in the 70s, sold 4.5 million copies. A congressman read it into the congressional record and then died shortly thereafter in a plane crash. The LaRouche people put together this great presentation of the history of the last 400 years. Lyndon LaRouche winds up in jail, right? Fritz Springmeier writes his book famously, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and he winds up getting framed for a bank robbery. And so we're talking about from the 1970s until now, all of this information has been revealed. And it seems like what happens is that the people who reveal the information either get thrown in jail or they die in a plane crash. but the trajectory of things doesn't really seem to change. And in the meantime, I've got Webster Tarpley like rolling around in the back of my head screaming about Trump, like Doug Valentine and Doug Hobsicker. And then you're digging up all of this great information about what really happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. But outside of the audience of the people who follow this show, I'm not, and the people who follow shows like, what's the guy's show, the financial analyst that's been doing the
Chris Martinson.
Chris Martinson. It doesn't seem like the mainstream media is involved at all in trying to find out what the story is, and most people watch the mainstream media. And in the meantime, you send me a link to another movie trailer, which I guess we'll show, and then we'll get the copyright strike, because I don't know why you get copyright strikes on movie trailers, because you're kind of promoting the film. But there seems to be a whole kind of litany of crazy things going on, and it makes me ask the question, is knowledge really power? Because we're winding up becoming more informed by virtue of the research that we do. We're informing the people that are out there with the research that we do. But unless that turns into something, unless that winds up creating some kind of, perish the word, praxis, that gets people off the couch and going and doing something that's effective, right? Then what's really going on? So I'm not trying to be a black pill, because I do think that that we do God's work on this show, and I'm not going to stop doing it. So I'm not trying to black pill anyone, but I do think it's a good question that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, it is, and I compare it to, I'm sort of the court reporter in ancient Rome, and I'm following Caesar and all the senators into the Senate. And I've overheard Cassius talking with Decimus and Brutus saying, if we kill Caesar right now, we'll end Republican government for 436 years. Okay? And then Caesar walks into the Senate, and so he can't hear or see what happens next. But I see Decimus, Cassius, and Brutus all drop their swords. They're going to kill Caesar. It's obvious now, right? And I don't have a recording capability of that, but I want to run in and tell Caesar, hey, Republican government's going to end for 436 years. It's going to be a dark ages. We're going to have to wait until, St. Augustine to see light again. And you should not be here today, right? And Decimus, of course, is the one that most people don't know, but he's the one who talked Caesar into being there. So I don't look at this as just Trump. I look at this as light or darkness for the next 436 years, which is a lot longer than I'm going to be alive. So that's why I'm spending my time on this. And I've seen the swords fall out of the togas. And I need to tell the world. Now, you may remember in the story, there is actually a soothsayer who doesn't have evidence like I do, who says, beware the Ides of March. And Caesar doesn't take his word for it. And Caesar does go in and he is killed. And we do have 436 years of darkness. So I think that this is one of those times where only one person can truly change history for 436 years, or one in research group, one research group.
Well, you sound like Andrew Breitbart. The one time that I met Andrew Breitbart, that was the drum that he was pounding. Which is, there are a few people in the world that have actually made real big changes. Unfortunately, and what I'm finding out is that most of them are Venetian oligarchs.
Yeah, well, I don't say that Trump is the linchpin to democracy, but I do know the people on the other side who are the continuity government people who create false flags and want to get rid of the Constitution, and they want to institute world government. So I do know those people. And if they are allowed to use assassination instead of the ballot box bullets rather than ballots, then we might have 436 years of darkness.
Right. Well, and that's why it's funny because the picture that I chose to put on the card for the show today is Hillary. If I had thought about it, I'd have it to bring up, but I'll go find it next time you're talking. Is Hillary Clinton driving a bus with Kamala Harris smiling in front of the bus and waving. It's like, and again, we'll go and we'll take a look at this trailer for this movie. What's the movie called again?
It's called War Game.
War Game.
Not like Matthew Broderick, which is War Games.
Right.
This is just War Game.
Yeah, it's got an interesting group of companies that made it also. I'm interested in doing a little research on that when we're looking at the trailer. But the idea is that
there's a surprise waiting for you. For all the people.
I'm not sure that Donald Trump is the only candidate who's got a Wile E. Coyote anvil hanging over his head right now. And in fact,
if I was Kamala Harris and I won, I immediately would make Hillary Clinton my vice president, and I immediately would resign. And become her vice president, and then you'll live. But otherwise, you're right. You're roadkill.
Well, I mean, if I were Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, I would do a debate on Zoom. Like I wouldn't be in the same room.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's danger. Will Robinson.
Right, that would be the perfect time for the Iranians or the North Koreans to do something stupid, right?
Yeah. I agree with that. And we know that there's a bagman out there promising $1 million to blow up Trump. And all I got to do is pay off a Donnie O'Sullivan, or somebody like that, a key grip for, $20 an hour. And now I basically changed the trajectory of the world.
Right, exactly. So, all right. So we could take a look at this trailer if you'd like.
Yeah, it's Vindman, and Vindman is not in it directly, but Vindman's the key writer in it, and then Struck.
He's the writer?
Well, he's the key consultant. What do you call it? A film consultant. He's the key consultant.
Right. I tweeted out a couple of days ago. So the Rand Corporation and the Council on Foreign Relations, through their outlet Foreign Policy, have just been tweeting out so much nonsense in the last couple of days. And the funny thing is that now that I have recognized this linguistic pattern, the cause-effect complex equivalence that I have rebranded if then equals because, then I just see it like that all the time. And there's just so much nonsense coming out of these people. And it only works because we as a population have been neutered from our critical thinking skills. But one of the reasons that I keep pounding this if then equals because linguistic pattern is because if you can get to a point where you can recognize it in real time, it's fun. Foreign Policy posts cause-effect complex equivalence. I have a prompt that's already written in GPT. I go into GPT, I hit a macro on my computer, and I drop their quote in, and within 10 seconds of their posting it on Twitter, I've got 14 responses to their nonsense. So I can take their nonsense and give them 14 nonsense responses to their nonsense. It's a superpower.
There you go. I love it.
I'm excited. Here we go.
My fellow Americans, it is undeniable that this past election was stolen. To all those members of the armed forces.
So I didn't mean to do that. Add to stage. Wait, I gotta put. So, assuming that this movie was in production, and assuming they thought that Trump would not be around to be the candidate when this movie comes out, is this supposed to be Flynn?
I think so.
I mean, it kind of felt like Flynn.
I think the actor's name is Ron Brown, maybe, and I think he's supposed to be playing Flynn.
Yeah, this is my guess. Here we go.
To defend our liberty and land.
Our liberty and land. That line comes out like blood and soil. Like liberty and land.
Isn't that Ukraine? Isn't that Azov Brigade's
well, but blood and soil comes from Manzini, I think, which is the guy who basically invented all of the communist revolutions and creates all of the race-based derision in the world. It's all based on blood and soil or racism. So this sounds like they wanted to get close, but this they put it into GPT, and they got 10 suggestions, and they came out with what was it? And land, something in land, liberty and land, liberty and land.
A torch parade, a night torch parade through Kiev in 2014 timeframe, blood and soil with Pravi Sector and Azov Brigade. So yeah, here we go.
All right, so I'm going to go back a little bit here.
Liberty and land.
Liberty and land. Okay, here we go. So let's go through here. Okay. I don't know, this is for researchers. I don't know who Submarine Deluxe is. It's probably the director's production company. So I'm getting my pencil out here. Here we go. Right here. Submarine Deluxe. Not Supermarine Deluxe, right? Submarine Deluxe. And then Decal. Who's Decal? Never heard of him. Anonymous Content. Who's Anonymous Content?
These are all just like CIA ways of dripping leaks or war game plans.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I'm asking all of you out there to start Googling this stuff and figure out who these people are. All right, here we go. And then Boat Rocker. Now that went by really quick. Boat Rocker. But Boat Rocker is interesting because they have this logo. Let me see. Share screen. No. Let's see if I can do this window. Boat Rocker. Here we go. Boat Rocker. Integra. And I looked this up on Google Translate. In Latin, it means the integrity of image creation. And you've got Neptune, because you got their horses with hooves in the front, but it looks like the back of them are fishes. So they're like seahorses. And he's got his like trident up there. So it's got all of this kind of like occulted imagery. So let's keep going. Boat Rocker. Boat Rocker,
Seated around this room is an incredible diversity of professional experience spanning the last 5 presidential administrations. Most of you have sworn under oath to defend.
Now, are these real people?
Well, you saw Peter Strzok there. You saw. Keep going back a little bit. You see Strzok, and then you see
Where's
Wesley
Strzok?
Clark.
Oh, that is Strzok.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
They're not.
Why are they calling this a Council on Foreign a joint venture between the Council on Foreign Relations, the Atlantic Council, and the International Institute for Foreign Affairs, or the Royal Institute for International Affairs?
It's all CIA guys. It's all CIA generals and admirals. This whole thing. There's
right.
Wesley Clark.
Wesley
all
Clark.
Atlantic Council guys. All Atlantic Council guys. Yeah.
And they have 6 hours. Do you see the 6 hours in the background there?
Yeah. And then what they did is they took something. Well, go ahead. Play the rest.
No. That's okay. I want to hear you.
Well, they filmed live supposedly 6 hours where everybody ad-libbed, and they edited down to a 2-hour movie. I think it was filmed over 12 hours, but they used the clock scenario. What I like about this is it's easy to make a war room type picture like this, because it's easy to have people come into a bunker and go, they just took the Navy bridge. The rebels just took the Navy bridge. What are we going to do about it? They just took the Washington Monument. What are we going to do about it? There's sniper nests in the Washington Monument. It's lends itself to drama without a lot of expense.
Anonymous Content used to be called Propaganda Films. Propaganda Films was one of the biggest independent film production companies in Los Angeles in the 80s.
There you go.
They had a full slate. I knew several directors at Propaganda in the 80s. Good job, people. All right, here we go. propaganda.
An incredible diversity of professional experience spanning the last 5 presidential administrations. Most of you have sworn under oath to defend the Constitution. What happens when those in uniform break that oath?
January 6th.
So what happens when those in uniform break that oath? So something just fell. Anyway, what I'm thinking is that this is a direct shot across the bow of anybody out there who's thinking about doing something, or it's also it's preparation. What do they call it? Battlefield preparation, where you're
priming,
right.
Live exercise priming. And the part here was they believe continuity of government. They believe Dick Cheney's codicils, the unvoted on codicils for continuity of government, is part of the Constitution.
Right.
So that's how they get away with thinking they're defending the Constitution. Dick Cheney's meanderings about continuity of government have nothing to do with the Constitution.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Do you know Mark Romanek? I don't know Mark Romanek, but David Fincher was out of there. Yeah. I believe David Fincher came out of propaganda. Okay. All right. So here we go.
Demonstrated a possible false sense of security.
The next insurrection could involve members of the active duty military turning their weapons around on the folks that they're...
Who's this person?
She's the head of a company called Vet Voice. And Vet Voice is a loose collection of a bunch of ex-4-star and 5-star generals and admirals from CIA. So they're trying to give you the idea that this is some kind of grassroots organization. It's nothing of the sort. This stuff gets practiced every day and every quarter at the War College down on the Potomac. It's also practiced at the Eisenhower Institute in Gettysburg. They also practiced it at the Army War College in Carlisle in Pennsylvania. And all you're getting is the 50th performance here. But she's trying to make it look like this is all just spontaneous grassroots. It's all AstroTurf.
Right, and she looks like she could be related to Ghislaine Maxwell or Mariana Abrovnik. Right? It's like looks like they have similar DNA going on there.
We're there to protect. One of the recommendations was to war game what that might look like.
I am President Hotham, Chief Executive of the United States of America.
So this is a lot like Exercise 201.
Yeah, Event 201.
Event 201. Event 201, same thing.
6 hours.
This guy used to be the governor of Montana, Steve Bullock, Democratic governor of Montana. He's playing the president, the thoughtful president, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so they got a real governor in here to do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kate Dirksen says, that's Janessa Goldbeck, Chief Executive Officer of Vet Voice. Okay, here we go. We're working as a team here.
War and ensure the peaceful transfer of power.
Mr. President, we are going to be starting the game in 3.
We are here to stress test our national security system.
1.
I want them to be prepared for the worst case scenarios.
Who's that guy?
He's one of the producers of the film, one of the directors of the film.
Okay, so he wants them to be okay. So they hired a production company to run the exercise, and this production company, Boat Rocker does scripted and they do unscripted production. So I'm guessing Boat Rocker is actually what they would call the line producers. They're actually the people who hired all of the talent and are putting all of the people on the set and stuff. So I'm guessing this guy's a Boat Rocker guy, but I could be wrong. Somebody fact check me. Here we go.
To be prepared for the worst case scenarios.
So Jesse Moss or Tony Gerber, I would guess. From the executive producer of The Handmaid's Tale. How uplifting. Oh my God. Somebody said he thinks that guy does a show with Jason. Here we go.
I have no idea if, at the end of this exercise, this country collapses or comes together.
Where would we like to send a large body of armed crazies?
Capital. That's, see, to me, capital. If you want to affect change, do not send anybody to Washington, D.C. If you want to affect change on whatever I don't know if it's January 6th or whatever day they're counting the electoral ballots, do not show up in Washington, D.C. Show up on the steps of your state capitol. That would be a good place to show up. Here we go. But I'm not telling anybody what to do.
You are confirming that there are National Guard that have in fact let protesters through.
I'm going to flood the zone.
Okay, wait. They're quoting, the quotes are kind of funny here too. War game is pure nightmare fuel, Daily Beast. Because everybody reads the Daily Beast, right?
I'm going to flood the...
You have to ask yourself a question. Okay, targeted audience, who reads the Daily Beast, right? Do people who watch TikTok, are they on do they read the Daily Beast? Are people who are watching Instagram shorts, are they reading the Daily Beast? No. So this is targeted at people who are probably at least 40 years old, if not older.
And
right?
readers.
Right, and people who read, right. Oh wait, what was the clock there in the background though?
2 hours, 16 minutes left, Peter.
Is it counting down or it's counting down? Okay,
counting down.
Right, okay, here we go.
Zone with fake pictures.
Okay, and now they're going to flood the internet with fake pictures. Here we go.
I'm going to flood the zone with fake pictures, guys.
Very difficult to find out what is real and what is.
And there were actual images of that?
And there were actual. Okay, here's another clue. A critical wake-up call. RogerEbert.com. George, who's the audience for RogerEbert.com?
That's 60 and over.
60 and over. Roger Ebert's been dead for over a decade, right?
At least, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, maybe 20 years. Here we go.
But the thing is, once you have a .com...
and Dave Underdown says, flood the zone. Isn't that a Bannon strategy? Yes, it is.
Yeah, they're quoting Bannon, yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go.
It is not compromising the proceedings of the election.
Yeah, it is compromising the proceedings of the election. The entire Congress is still in a bunker.
The election already happened. If they're counting the votes,
well, you gotta have Stanley McChrystal, you gotta have Joe Biggs working for Stanley McChrystal, you gotta have Fort Psych Ops. If you really want to tell the story of who's affecting the election, you got to name the unit numbers and the people. So there you go.
Right. Let's not forget all of the independent special operators that are in North Carolina also. Here we go. Both exciting and absolutely terrifying. Rolling Stone.
Now they're playing.
They want you to be excited and terrified. How many people would be terrified if that happened? Would you be terrified? You and I were there. Like, if that actually really went down, would that really be terrifying? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Melissa Dykes has this new video on Sputnik, and how many people were actually really upset that the Russians sent up a satellite. And the fact is, nobody was. It's just that the media ran all these stories saying that Americans were really upset.
If the first guy to go over the gate got a bullet in the forehead from a sniper, that would have stopped all of January 6th. If Joe Biggs would have got a bullet through the forehead by a sniper protecting the Capitol grounds, it would have stopped the whole thing.
Yeah.
If the guy who just climbed the thing to try to get at Trump at the Jonestown rally would have got a bullet through the forehead, that's the last time somebody would rush the stage. But what happened in Dayton? The guy rushed the stage and got a hand on Trump's foot. If they would have put a bullet in his forehead, there would have never been another person rushing the stage. And the problem is that when people are threatening the life of the president, that's when you have to put a bullet in their head. In this case, Urich should be dead, but he's not. But we're going to get to that story later. But my point is that we see these open attacks. We predicted an open attack less than a week later. Here's not more than 60 miles away from the original attack, and nothing is done about it. We don't even have the guy's name.
Hey, should I just quit Twitter? All right, anybody who's on Twitter, I'm sorry, there's a troll. When Elon Musk comes out with good content moderation tools, we'll continue on Twitter, but otherwise, join us on Rumble or YouTube. Bye now. So, sorry about that.
I'll just say this. I was in Ohio looking for missing uranium, and I think more that we've learned over the years how true that is. and I predicted that Norfolk would be the place. So I don't know what the troll's talking about, but my point is that Daniel Sullivan can say whatever he wants. We were right, and that terrorist group was arrested the next year. Ibrahim was arrested in 2018. So we'll just move on.
Yeah, sorry about that. Here we go. We're watching the video.
Everybody back to table.
It could be a prequel to Alex Garland's Civil War. In fact, when they were slating it, when they were at the CIA and they were writing it up on the whiteboard, then that's exactly how it was slated.
You can authorize lethal force.
Pause for just a second. Is that correct? You could have federal...
We've done it on the southwest border.
He's going to have to make a decision.
We've done it on the southwest border. So can you do that legally? And he's going, we've done it. He didn't say, yes, it's legal. He said, we've done it.
Yeah.
And this is the woman that we saw earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's the CEO of Vet Boys.
All right. To save democracy. It's always about saving democracy. Okay. What are these? Are these state capitals?
Yeah, they're showing insurrections at all the state capitals. So they're
right. If you were smart, you'd do it there. That's it. Yeah.
Courage on the table.
The United States could be on the brink of a second civil war.
We've pissed off.
So they clearly want this to happen, right?
Right.
Okay.
A lot of senior ranking folks from all 5 presidential administrations.
Doing my job.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. Yeah. Presidential administration ranking folks from all 5 presidential. You've pissed off a lot of senior ranking folks from all 5 presidential administrations.
Doing my job.
Great job.
Yeah.
All right. Starting August 2nd. Well, that was last month.
Yeah, and I think it's only in Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. And the reason why...
I wonder if it's in our favorite movie theater, George.
Yeah, I want to go back up there. We got to make another trip out to California to talk to all the James O'Keefe and all the Bobby Kennedy Jr. Supporters anyway. But we should check out the Palisades Theater. But my point is that the reason why they haven't signed a video on demand deal, the reason why they haven't signed a Netflix deal, they've been shopping it since January at Sundance in Park City. The reason why they haven't found it is because they know they're immediately going to piss off more than half of all their viewers, and they're going to cancel their subscriptions. Because immediately they're going to see it as CIA propaganda. This is just more Event 201 now with assassination. They just tried to kill the president. The president did get shot.
And that was on the 15th, right? What date? What date was
that? It was 2 weeks before, the 13th of January, J13.
You mean July?
July 13th, excuse me. So this comes out 2 weeks later.
Trump was supposed to be assassinated on the 13th. And this movie was supposed to come out on the 2nd. And it's not in full release yet? Did they pull it? Like 7 days in May?
No, they didn't pull it, but they're going to go straight to video. They're going to go straight to devices. And I think Peter Strzok just announced he's going to Hollywood with a big checkbook. And they're going to try to underwrite this to get one of the, like Netflix to pick it up, or Showtime, or HBO documentary channel, or what
you mean he's going to put a horse's head on somebody's bed?
No, I think he's going to say, how many people are you going to lose? Oh, we're going to lose 50 million people are going to cancel their subscription. How much is that going to cost you? Well, it's 50 times $100. Okay, that's 50 million. What if I wrote you a check for $50 million right now? Would you still do the show? There's some small outfits that'll take that $50 million and run. And that's what Peter Strzok's doing right now. He's shopping this thing in Hollywood to try to get one of the...
Look, it's playing, Tuesday the 3rd, September. Okay, so it's playing in San Rafael in the Bay Area, Boston, Massachusetts, Billings, Montana, London. Are these all fundraising shoot? If you're a Democratic donor, or if you're a bundler, are you getting free tickets to these shows so that you can do fundraising at the end of the show? So you show the movie, and then it's kind of like the Holocaust industrial complex. You scare the crap out of a bunch of people who are afraid that if they don't write a check, they're going to lose their democracy
This is the wine and cheese crowd. This is the Sean Penn wine and cheese crowd. These are all university towns. You can see Missoula, Montana, and you can see the other Montana location
Minneapolis, Washington.
Because the governor stars in it, the ex-governor of Montana who wants to run again.
Texas.
So Billings and Missoula are in there. But most of this, if you look at wine and cheese, where Sean Penn used to live, in San Rafael, right? It's the wine and cheese circuit with Sean Penn. And that's a really limited release. If you look at those cities, that's not a...
Yeah, I'm going date by date, and it's not... Oh, here's all the dates. Okay. Here, I'm going to look for Los Angeles, since I live in Los Angeles. Oh, look, there's no results found.
Right, because people are after the assassination. I think if Trump is supposed to be dead, and then Mike Flynn is supposed to be the president, and this film is very much aimed, as you said, Peter, at Mike Flynn, right? And their assumption here is Trump's dead, so this thing kind of lands flat.
Yeah, Missoula, Montana. So let's just San Rafael. The bluest of the blue, right?
Sean Penn.
Yep. Brookline, Massachusetts, the bluest of the blue.
Rules for radicals, written in Brookline.
Okay. Billings, Montana it's probably red, right?
But the governor of this thing is doing a private show. You know, he's doing wine and cheese fundraising there.
Right, but they also might be doing track and trace on everybody who buys a ticket. Right, London, UK. This is where I don't know where you're gonna have a royal screening. Actually, it's for the London, UK is for the Tavistock Institute and the Fabian Society members. Right, and the Royal Institute of International Affairs. All those people will be at the screening, right? San Francisco, bluest of blue, fundraising, like you said, Santa Rosa, fundraising, San Rafael, Minneapolis. Minneapolis is interesting. Who do you think's going to go in Minneapolis?
Waltz. You know.
Waltz. Right. These are fundraising.
This is the OPB circuit, or the PBS circuit, you know, where you go in and you rent out a concert hall and you play this thing. But the problem is that this comes right on the blood of the president. This thing has the blood of the president all over it.
Right.
Everyone says I'm a conspiracy theorist saying that Trump's been shot. No, Trump was shot. He was an inch away from the Zapruder film. This thing has the blood all over it, and that's why it rings very hollow.
Okay, let's see who these guys are. War Games. Okay. Jerry Moss's film includes Boys State for Apple and A24, my favorite mind control production company. The Overnighters for Draft House and Netflix, and recently The Mission for National Geographic. For Netflix, he directed The Family, a 5-part series, and Payday, an episode of the series Dirty Money. Never seen any of those. Tony Gerber, Emmy Award-winning and PGA Award-winning filmmaker, has directed over a dozen films for National Geographic. Thank you, World Wildlife Foundation and other British imperial organizations, including Kingdom of the White Wolf, a series shot in the Arctic. His feature doc includes Full Battle Rattle with Jesse Moss. Full Battle Rattle. I wonder what Full Battle Rattle is about. Full Battle Rattle, for people who don't know, is what operators call their outfit when they're ready to go. When SWAT teams show up, they're in full battle rattle. The notorious Mr. Bout, he produced Jane and Oscar shortlisted Takeover. Shortlisted meaning they were thinking about nominating it, but they didn't. So these guys are people I have never heard of. Executive producers. Okay, these are the guys who brought the money, right? And usually you have one executive producer. So it looks like they have a committee. Wow. They have 7 executive producers. That's wild.
Well, this is to basically spread the CIA money out.
Right.
And, Full Battle Rattle was them doing kind of live, unscripted 3-week training period with an Army unit.
Yep.
So, each of these folks is going to get money from whatever NGO, Spoons and Forks for Panama, or whatever, bullets and shells for Guatemala, whatever their cutout is. But then they pass that through so that you can't see that it's agency funded. But this is a big agency funded exercise.
Right.
And they're
exactly.
pushing this false narrative that all these people want to come to Washington with weapons. Well, wait a minute. I was at the last January 6th, like you were, like producer Jessica was, and not one person pulled a weapon. Wait a minute. I thought this was an armed insurrection. It's the craziest armed insurrection I've ever heard of.
They had matching knitted hats.
Yeah, they were going to take it over by, rayon, was going to be the new secret weapon. The only people that pulled a weapon was a starter's pistol that was pulled by the provocateurs to try to get somebody to pull a gun. So this is a big lie. It's a big garbage in, garbage out documentary with a bunch of CIA guys who are getting a big check from CIA, and the producers are getting a big check. And then they're backing up and saying, hey, I'll do garbage in and garbage out if you're going to pay me like this.
Right.
And what we would rather do, you did so well at J6, is facts in, and then usually you get facts out. And that's the alternative. That's our citizen journalism alternative, this garbage in, garbage out stuff.
Right. So circling back to the name of the show, Is Knowledge Really Power? I see a lot of power here, George. Millions of dollars have been spent to create a false narrative. And in the meantime, George has got his Zoom background and Peter is in his 460 square foot apartment trying to get facts and the truth out to people so that they can use their critical thinking skills to make decisions, and the onslaught of media just continues.
Yeah, I guess I view it the other way. I look at the billions that are spent and how little traction they get. And I look at how effective we are for eating shoelaces and stewing shoelaces, and that's our diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes say, wow, we're kicking their ass, We blew through the whole assassination, lone gunman thing, where they missed. We didn't miss, they missed. And now they have to live with it. And now they're trying to run the same plays, but it's like they didn't realize the Trump bullet missed. It just clipped the ear,
Mm-hmm.
and they're running the plays like Trump's dead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just noticed here, Lieutenant General retired Jeffrey Buchanan, Commander Northcom. Who's the commander of Northcom? What is he in charge of?
Missiles.
COG.
Oh,
the commander of Northcom becomes the dictator of the world in the COG scenario. So I think it's very interesting that they have a former Northcom general there. Let's see, who else?
Well, as you go through here, you just see it's loaded with people. Chris Goldsmith, Red Cell leader, over there on the right. It's just loaded with people who've slopped at the trough, slopped at the intelligence trough,
mm-hmm.
backed up, didn't tell their family and friends that they were taking the CIA check, but they're cashing that CIA check like nobody's business, right?
Yeah. It's funny because my buddy Mike Waller, who I love like my brother, was tweeting out today, what if the CIA has been infiltrated by foreign actors? And I tweeted back at him, the CIA was created by foreign actors, by MI6. What are you talking about?
Well, and then they brought in half of the Nazis, and then they brought in half of the...
right, exactly. Then they brought in they backfilled with Gestapo. It's like, come on, Mike.
This is all Project for New American Sense, garbage in, garbage out, and we get it every day after Labor Day, right? Is now they push the big push, right? Now they're going to try to get this out into every one of the Netflix places. They're going to hammer Netflix if they don't pick it up. Netflix is not going to touch it. Probably going to end up on Showtime.
Yeah, or pay-per-view. Or, we'll get it on Apple TV. We can get. Oh, look, key art. Here, let's look at the key art. High-resolution JPEG. Not very big. Little plastic soldiers. Let me see if I can blow this up. Actually, I'll just download it and then open it, and then we can see it.
I want to do a shout out to Norman Smith there, a great musician that I listen to his ever increasingly great works. So sponsor Norman there in North Carolina, or wait, Florida now, I think. Yeah, got to follow him.
All right, so here's the art. A political thriller in documentary form, an excellent film by, I can't read it, Vulture.
I just want to overdub all this and just add in the dialogue where it's like they're voting in massive numbers for Trump. It's 60-40 in Massachusetts. What are we going to do? This is a really bad red flag for the rest of the election. Maine has just gone 70-30 Trump. Oh, call out the National Guard. Say that there's trigger the power outage. You cut the internet. I want to change the dialogue, but keep the visuals. And there's only 6 hours to railroad the American people.
Yeah, but I think that you're right about the slopping at the trough, because I think that not only is there a great deal of propaganda going on in this thing, but there's a lot of people making money. There's an
unlimited budget. Unlimited budget for, you say, democracy's at stake. Somebody writes a position paper like, Dick Cheney and Progress for a New American Century, Wolfowitz, and then it's like turning on a flow, but the flow is actually like, silver, liquid silver flowing out, and you just put your slop bucket underneath it and just fill it up to your heart's content. That's what these movies are.
Indeed. So looping back to the Palmerston's zoo project that was created by LaRouche. It's just, there's so much great content out there, and I'm really excited about working with this stuff, because when I found this video, I was just thinking, boy, does such a great job. It's so succinct at kind of like laying out what's really happening right now and how we got here, and what are the forces that are in play, and how do you explain this thing to people in a really simple and organized way. And like I said, the LaRouche group, they were doing, my criticism of them is kind of the same original conversation that you and I had out there, which is, how do you package information in a way that you can get people's attention so that they actually understand what's really happening? And what I really like about the GPT stuff that I've been doing lately is that I'm taking things that are, they're not that complicated, okay? But they are definitely a different way of looking at the world. They are a reframe from the way that we've all been taught the way the world works and the way that things are happening. And what I'm really quite satisfied with what GPT is allowing me to do is to take kind of complicated ideas and then presenting them using simpler language. And I did realize my friend Matt Arrett was criticizing me a little bit in a back and forth that we had about beware of reductionism, and I realized, okay, it's always a marble that's rolling around in the back of my head that I shouldn't oversimplify. But I don't think that's what he meant. I think that what he meant was that what the people that we're up against tend to do is to reduce the number of explanations for what's going on to some kind of absurd level, so that people never really understand what's going on. And I think that's different than what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm trying to simplify things. I'm not trying to reduce the amount of information. I'm trying to make the information fit into the bandwidth that people have. And I think that there's a difference there. So I don't think that I'm actually reducing I think I'm increasing the signal at the same time that I'm reducing the bandwidth.
Even though we talked about the other film, Peter, can you play a little bit of the LaRouche thing, or?
Yeah, let me see. I got to go find it. Well, I'll just go to my Substack. That might be the easiest way to do this. Here we go.
Do that. Yeah, and people are mentioning the TDS in the chat, and I have this ability. Wayne Madsen also has TDS, even though I respect him greatly as an investigative reporter. So did Dan. So did Doug Valentine. I'm like, what is it? When you get to that subject, you just lose all, rational thought. We're all in complete agreement until we get to that topic.
Well, I think I know what it is. And what it is that I think that they believe that American politics is theater. And that any amount of faith that people have in someone who's acting within the system, no matter how good their story is, no matter how many of the things that they say that they're going to do align with the personal beliefs of the people who are watching them, if they know that system is 100% fake, then it doesn't matter how good the story is that somebody like Donald Trump tells. And in fact, it winds up becoming worse because people who might be taking their time, energy, and money and putting them into affecting a change, giving money to George Webb or Peter Duke instead of giving it to Donald Trump, okay, then that's another 4 years that's lost. Then that's another 4 years where nobody's going to do anything. And so at that point, somebody like Donald Trump represents somebody who's actually more dangerous than the person who's obviously bad, who is Kamala Harris. That's the only way that I can kind of come up with a rationalization for it. Okay, so Undercover Empire is the one that I released yesterday. I'll just click on it for grins, and I've got this is really the Babylonian lion, right? Which the Venetians wound up. This is all the stuff winds up going back to Babylon, but the Venetians basically took the wealth of Rome, moved up to Venice. They were hiding out in the swamps there. Eventually, they wound up moving to Amsterdam and then London. And then after that to New York. But the British were fully engaged in in 1848, revolutions overthrew every monarchy in Europe except Great Britain. Who was paying for those revolutions? Who had their secret service and they're working on all that stuff? So what I've done in order to try to get people to pay more attention is I've come up with some compelling graphics, which I think are exciting. B, I've rewritten the title of the lecture, The Undercover Empire, London's Global Covert Revolution Strategy. And then I've cut out one lecture. This is actually a 3-hour and 48-minute presentation, I think. And it's a series of about 6 or 7 lectures with what they call a chorus in between, where Webster Tarpley is kind of setting the scene for each new speaker coming up. Unfortunately, Webster Tarpley's audio is broken in half the videos, but I have the script. I have the script that Webster Tarpley is reading. So I was thinking about going back into 11 Labs, training it with Webster Tarpley, and then fixing the audio. So I've got things that I'm working on. But here, when you click on it, you're going to get the 1992 video. Here we go.
I am now standing in the shadow of the Houses of Parliament in the part of London called Westminster.
This is actually the introduction to the entire 3-hour and 48-minute presentation.
It is the year of grace, 1850. Around me lies Victorian London, the London of Dickens and Thackeray, of John Stuart Mill and Thomas Carlyle.
But like you could see, this is like it's bad VHS, like from the 1990s, and so what I've done for each one of these videos is that I've taken the script, because I have the script, and then I've done a summary. So you can listen to it, and it's a great speech. But what I've done is, for all of I've summarized it. So London, New Venice, the new center of global power. This is what Tarpley is talking about. It's just basically a summary of what he's saying. The power behind the throne is Lord Palmerston's dominance. The revolutionary strategy is Palmerston's European agenda. It's about how Palmerston had agents, Giuseppe Manzini, who founded, among other things, the mafia and all of the Marxist, the proto-Marxist movements that sprung up around Europe, that wound up in all of the revolutions in 1848. They chased the Pope Pius IX out of Rome. You've talked about that on your show before. The Roman Republic, a challenge to papal power. This is a Roman Republic that showed up in 1849, not the original Mark Antony Caesar version. What the Crimean War was, the British strategy, the Sepoy Rebellion, the creation of the Opium Wars, the Maximilian Project, basically getting Napoleon III to go and take over Mexico. The Russians sending support to the American Civil War. A lot of people don't know that part of what kept Great Britain from supporting the South more than they did was that the Russians sent navies to Tsar Alexander II sent navies to San Francisco and New York harbors. And then I've got an FAQ. These are all things that automatically get generated that I run my prompts on. And then so you can go through the FAQ, you can go through the people, and I get there's a little bio on every person who's mentioned in the lecture. And then George's favorite at the end here, organizations, all the organizations that are mentioned. And then locations. And then if you scroll to the bottom here, a timeline. So basically what I've done is I run this script, and all of the dates that are mentioned, it puts together a timeline for you. So I'm doing this for every lecture. Here's a glossary, all of the terms that he's using. And so what I'm doing is, for each one of these videos, I'm running a summary, a FAQ, bios, locations, timelines, and other information, so that people can, really, if they want to. And a lot of times there's a bibliography. If books are mentioned, I'm putting bibliographies up so that people can go research this stuff themselves if they want.
Well, I think it's an interesting period in British history. Palmerston, 1905 to like 1805 to like 1865. It was like for 50 years or something. Right. So in one way or another, controlling British foreign policy. And it was
right. He was either the Prime Minister or the Secretary of State for
or war. I don't remember the whole. Yeah, but he was certainly a big influential part of the height of Britain. And then I think you get into Tragedy and Hope and Carroll Quigley and the latter Victorians and their machinations with the guy down in South Africa and all that, that Quigley talks about. So these two things are kind of like great bookends for the British history. And I think, you get into some of the British authors that tell in the story, like Churchill or whatever, it's 20 volumes, and you'll never get this, clear, clean sweep of all the false flags, Well,
I'm trying to make it as succinct. I'm trying to take complicated ideas and make them as succinct as possible for people who are used to consuming, sound bite-sized media, right?
Yeah, and the other part I think Tarpley does a good job of is he just goes right to the infiltration, to the plan, to the conspiracy, to the plot,
right?
and he leaves out a lot of the falderall and the self-congratulation and the pomp and circumstances and the trooping of the color. And he just goes right to, well, here's the three guys they inserted in the court. You know, they played off each other until they got power, and then they finally killed the king, and then they, you know, became a British governorship. You know, that's kind of Tarpley already, even in this 3.5 hours, is fairly succinct, but I think you've got it really compacted to a nice
right.
title.
I mean, the next one that I'm working on right now is really interesting because he really talks about what the motivation was in 1840. So, you know, I've talked a lot about like this guy, Henry Wentworth Monk, who went to Abraham Lincoln in 1863 during the Civil War to ask Abraham Lincoln to recognize Palestine as a Jewish homeland during the American Civil War. Well, that's a long time before Adolf Hitler showed up and did whatever Adolf Hitler did. And that's because that plan came up, that plan for British Israel basically came out of Palmerston out of 1840. And the idea was that in Turkey, there were two places in the world that the British really wanted to disrupt. One was Russia, because the Tsar and the Russians kept getting in the way. You know, when the American Civil War was happening, the Russians would send their fleets to San Francisco and New York, and that would prevent the British from getting more directly in line with the South, with the Confederacy, because their idea was to divide and conquer. They want to break the United States up, and they don't have any big ideological reason for it. What they want is that they want the Americans to be at each other's throats because that makes them easier to control, which is exactly the same strategy that we're dealing with now, today. Same people, same families, same money. It's all exactly the same. But Russia and the Middle East. Middle East because it's that land bridge between Africa and Eurasia, and the Suez Canal runs through the middle of it. So it is, from a strategic standpoint, if you're controlling commerce on the ocean, one of the most important geographical areas on the surface of the planet. And the idea was that by convincing Jews that they needed this homeland, and they could effectively create fifth columns in Turkey and in Russia. Okay, remember, Israel didn't exist yet, and the Ottoman Empire was in control of the Holy Land. So the creation of Zionism in 1840 was a strategic plan in order to enroll Jews into this British globalist strategy, but the Brits weren't going to tell them that's what they were doing. They were going to tell them it was because there were mean people around the world who were being mean to them, and they needed to be protected from these mean people. So it's all incredibly interesting, and I can't wait to release some more of these things.
Yeah, great work, and these are fun. These are fun, really kind of super speed ride through history, and very understandable.
Right, and I will get back to creating featured content for people who are members of the Duke Report, because I want to give them something that other people aren't getting. However, I think this information is really important. And by the way, charging people for content that was basically made by somebody else is probably not very ethical anyway. So I'm not going to do that. But there's going to be 3 or 4 more of these because, like I said, it was a 3-hour and 48-minute presentation. Like I said, Tarpley's audio in half of it is not. It's just blank. There's no audio there. But I have the script. So I'm going to try to fix that. I see that we've got 6 starred comments. So here we go. All right. So Kate Dirksen says that is Jessica Goldbeck, Chief Executive Officer of Vet Voice. What?
Okay.
That's old.
That's old. I've been told that's old.
Yeah, Vet Voice has if you consider 5-star generals and admirals vets, yes, it is Vet Voice.
All right, here we go. Here's a good question. Ira Frank says, Can I ask George on his thoughts about Lyndon LaRouche and his organization, please, guys?
Well, I think there was contributors to EIR. I think there was some really good scholarship done. Like I said, in the area of undermining plots and intelligence operations, I think LaRouche was very strong. I think as a contributor, Tarpley is very strong. I think the network he put together was about Kissinger. He exposed Kissinger. We don't really have we were just picking up and finding out how right he was about Otepka, using the State Department as an internal kind of Gestapo. So yeah, I think he was right on the money on a lot of stuff. The part that we try to do is hands and feet of what the next plot is going to be. So we're in sort of the same game, only we're looking in toward the future, and Tarpley and those guys are kind of looking at some of the past,
Right. Well, and again, I think Lyndon LaRouche is probably one of the greatest minds of our time, meaning in my life. That said, an ego is a terrible thing to waste. And I believe that he thought that by sheer will, that he would be able to achieve some things within a system that's fundamentally broken. And I think that, he wound up going to jail because of that. And it certainly made him a hero in a lot of people's minds. But I look at the amount of the sheer volume. If you go to LaRouchePub.com and you look at the sheer volume of fantastic research and information that's in PDFs on that site, because I think that they were way ahead of the game. I think that when I was working on the X-Files website and building the first entertainment website on the internet, they were embracing that technology, and they were trying to get as much of their content in a form that would fit into that early 1990s format of the World Wide Web. And they built this website. And then the web, as George knows, the web changed a lot between 1990 and 2000. Browsers came out, bandwidth went up, a lot of things changed, and having all of your content optimized for a 28.8 modem and a 640 by 480 screen is not ideal if you want to get the information out there in the world. So they went all in on it, and then when the technology changed, they didn't really update it. And then I'm not exactly sure what the story is. I'm sure that people who follow John O'Loughlin probably know this better than I do. But, LaRouche PAC in the United States decided that they wanted to go with Donald Trump. And that created a huge schism between, as I understand it, between Helda Zepp LaRouche and the LaRouche PAC organization. And so they had a parting of ways. And so you've got all this content. You've got this Webster Tarpley content that's on the Webster Tarpley website. You've got all of this LaRouche content that's on LaRouchePub.com that is amazing. I mean, the stuff is just amazing, but these websites are 30 years old. Most of the content is really only available, most of the content for this particular series that I'm working on is only available on the web archive, on the old Schiller Institute website. It's not even on the new Schiller Institute website, because I think that they put that website up when they got into this schism with the LaRouche PAC in the United States. And so now the only way you can find that content is that if you go on the archive, web archive, and you go look for it. And again, it's serendipity and people giving me tips that led me to it. But I'm trying to repackage it in a way that people can get to it. So that's my current project that I'm working on. And this all goes into my book. This is all going into my book. That's why I'm doing this.
Great stuff. And this reminds me when I dealt with when I was with John O'Loughlin doing shows. Is he kind of works the history toward the now, and I kind of start with what happened in the last hour, and
right.
Move forward. And we're pushing the congressional committees on the Trump assassination, who are still out to lunch. They're still out They haven't done a thing. They're out on break until the 10th of September. There's one committee that informally started looking at stuff, but they keep saying radios. When nobody killed anybody with a radio, right? And they could have walked the radios across the 400-foot field at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So it's not radios that killed anybody. It's people shooting bullets.
Right.
And how did roofs get left up? So there's certain amount of like current events that you can't do the historical research. You got to go there and you got to interview people and you got to collect all the data and it's just
you can look at patterns though. I mean LaRouche. Yeah. The LaRouche contention is that the British are responsible for every presidential assassination. So why would Donald Trump's assassination be different than anybody else? It's a good question. Ira Frank says, can we, and when I'm saying the British, I don't mean my friends who are watching the show who live in Great Britain. I'm talking about the people who run the country, who you don't even see on television, the people who are in the House of Lords, the people who are married to Candace Owens. I'm talking about those people. Anyway, Ira Frank, can we ask George also what George thinks of the polio outbreak in Palestine and the countermeasures deployed by Israel?
Yeah, I think I hate to say it, but it is a way of getting aid workers in with a lot of cameras, a lot of body cameras. And if you're looking for vestiges of Hamas, it's a great way to go in under a cover, right, and then collect a lot of information. And unfortunately, that is happening. I don't doubt there's a polio outbreak, and I don't doubt there's a vaccine. But I know the Mossad wants the data that those aid workers are going to bring back. And there's going to be a lot of DNA in that DNA evidence from the shots and so forth. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how long the ceasefire is. And we just see how long it goes. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks. I think it's going to end in 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's going to start back up again with ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you're going to vaccinate people that you're trying to kill doesn't really make any sense to me. Yeah. All right, get rid of this. And Aquinas says, William Crystal is red cell operative. What does that tell you? It doesn't mean anything to me. What does it mean to you, George?
It was in the movie trailer.
Oh, Bill Crystal is about as, Project for a New American Century as you can get. He's, wolf in sheep's clothing.
He's in the red cell operative in the movie, I guess. Is Bill Crystal still alive?
Yeah, I think so. Bill Crystal is a person who just says the most blatant lies you can possibly imagine a human being saying with a straight face. But he gets a check from Wolfowitz every time he does, so he says them often and frequently, and that's him. That's Bill Crystal. Red Cell is again just a front for Project for New American Century.
All right, press. Somebody says there are interviews on YouTube with Jesse Moss and Tony. Yeah, I guess if there was a link, I could go click on them, but I don't see it. So people can go watch that themselves. Golden Tulip. Read. Okay, I don't need homework. Okay, so if you're telling me to read something, tell me why. Read Cambria Triumphans by Percy Enderby Britton. Was founded by a Trojan warrior coming back from the Trojan War. Okay? If you want me to read something or if you want me to put a book on the Duke Report, send me an email at contact@the-Duke Report and then give me the name of it and tell me why. Tell me why. Because time is when I take my final breath, I'm going to be looking at the clock going, what did I waste my time on? Last question. Here we go. Was Kurt Weldon affiliated with LaRouche? I don't know much about Weldon, but he was definitely targeted for... I don't know who Kurt Weldon is. Do you know who Kurt Weldon is, George?
I'm trying to think. No. I should know, and I know the name, but it's missing. Right.
All right, I don't know if I finished answering the question, though, about LaRouche. I think LaRouche is a smart guy. I think he may be one of the smartest guys I've ever encountered. That said, he built a great organization, and almost all of the great information that I'm finding lately is from people who were in that organization. You know, Webster Tarpley and Gerald Rose and all those other guys, Anton Chaikin. Those guys, they were at the top. They're at the top of their game. They know what they're talking about. They bring all the receipts in their work. Matthew Arrett has done a kind of a terrific job at. Once I discovered all of this stuff, I started realizing Matthew Arrett is taking this stuff that is going to be lost if he doesn't republish it, and he's reformatting it for a modern internet, and he's putting it out there in the world. And I think that it's great that he does that stuff, and there's a ton of it. There's a ton of that stuff, and the fact that we're having to go find this stuff and then go rescue it is kind of a testament to what I think might be the weakness of Lyndon LaRouche, which was putting all of your effort and energy into whatever the next big effort is, without an understanding that if you don't make it, that there needs to be some kind of a legacy involved in making sure that all of your stuff is organized and packaged and available to people in a way that you can that more people can get to it. And I think that that's the work that I'm doing with this GPT, because a lot of it is written for somebody who has a serious interest in foreign affairs, you know, like the type of people who read the magazine Foreign Affairs. That's the target audience of a lot of the stuff that Lyndon LaRouche published. And while it's informative and it's fantastic and it's great, it's not targeted at a popular audience. And this is where I kind of take exception with Matthew Arrett's Rising Tide Foundation idea too. It's like a rising tide floats all boats. So if you can make a bunch of people smart, then you can affect change. I understand the rationale. I also think that it's a little bit like boiling the ocean. And it might be a better strategy. That's why I'm doing my 2-page university. If you go to thedukereport.com/TPU, I will put a link to this on the front page of the Duke Report. These are little 2-page versions of books that you can print out on a printer and fold up and stick in a little library, because I think that a lot of people, if they read, they might read 500 words, which I'm trying to summarize books into 500 words, not because I think that that's the amount of information that people need, but I think it might be the amount of information that get people interested in trying to find out what the truth is. And if they can do that, then I think that we've got a chance. So I think that synthesizing this stuff for an audience that's used to looking at Instagram or TikTok is a strategy that I'm trying to pursue. With that, anything else, George?
No, I think Weldon might have gotten accused of being associated with the Russians because he did an exchange program, and LaRouche was accused of being a communist, you know, and working with the Russians. So, you know, I think that may be the only thread there. So anyway,
it is interesting though, because if you look at it, it's like you look at Matthew Arrett just like from 10,000 feet, and you look at his site and you read his content and stuff and go, he's so pro-Chinese, he's so pro-Russian. It's like he must be anti-American. And it's like, no, there's a difference between Americans. And by the way, I believe that anybody listening to this broadcast who believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is an American. And I don't care what country you live in. Because those are the American, that's the American epistemology, okay, that we're all trying to live up to. And that's in direct opposition to the oligarchy and the kind of technocracy that we're heading towards. What's her name? Melissa Dykes was tweeting about it again this morning, about how many people don't understand that the Constitution doesn't protect anything, and part of the reason that Patrick Henry was kind of the unsung hero of the Constitution was because he said that he wasn't going to bring in Virginia and he wasn't going to get the Constitution ratified unless there was a Bill of Rights. Because unless you have an epistemological reason for having checks and balances and all of the other stuff and an understanding of the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness mandate and the Declaration of Independence, then the Constitution is just a way of controlling people. And that's what it's turned into. So we need to get back to that point where we understand why we're doing things, why we follow the law, why we allow government to take our liberty away from us. And if you like the work that we're doing here, and if you like the work that George and I are trying to get all of this information out, then you can go to georgewebb.substack.com and you can support George on Substack, or you can go to thedukereport.substack.com and you can support me on Substack, or you can go to thedukereport.com and where I've got the news aggregator it's much faster. It's much more streamlined than it was even a couple of months ago. I've gotten rid of all of the things that were slowing the site down, and it's speedy and fast. And if you want to buy an edgy t-shirt, I sold a bunch of stuff on the t-shirt store. I don't know why, George, but a bunch of stuff went out of the t-shirt store this week. If you go to thedukereport.com/shop, you can buy an edgy t-shirt. And other than that, George, I'll see you again on Tuesday.
Okay, and I'll start wearing those Peter Duke T-shirts again. All right, thanks, Peter.
All right, very good. I got my Quigley and Sutton right here. See,
I should have had mine on today. It's a little warm, but anyway.
Yeah, it's getting warm in here. I got to turn that light off. So yeah. I'll talk to you soon, George. Bye now.
All right, thanks, Peter.
Bye, everybody.